As a young citizen of India, armed with technology, knowledge and love for my nation, with a vision of transforming India into a developed nation, I am joining Shobhit University. What about you?
Good morning to all the participants from India and abroad, from Shobhit Institute of Engineering and Technology, Meerut, a deemed to be university, and its centers of excellence, Center for Informatics Development Solutions and Application, and Center for Industry 4.0 Technology Studies and Application. Shobhit Institute of Engineering and Technology, Meerut, deemed to be university, and its centers of excellence, welcome our guest speaker of today's webinar, Mr. Ajay Jalan, founder and managing partner, Next Orbit Ventures, Mumbai. The participants from India and abroad attending this webinar for this international webinar series on open source digital technologies towards self-reliant India, Atmanirbhar Bharat, 19th December 2020. Under this international webinar series, these two centers of excellence of the Shobhit Institute of Engineering and Technology, Meerut, have organized 14 lectures so far. Namely, open technologies to provision simple and economical IT infrastructure, a roadmap for students using free and open source software and reaching goals of Atmanirbhar Bharat. Third, address on open source software and industrial IoTs for SMEs. Fourth was on free and open source software adoption and business models. Fifth, on open data platform for smart digital government. Sixth was on technology imperatives, make in India for self-reliance. Seventh was on edge artificial intelligence. Eighth was on data governance for self-reliant India. Ninth was on digital India, transforming governance and society. 10th was on India's email service, situation at indiamail.com in 22 constitutionally recognized languages. 11th was on ecosystem architecture for digital transformation. 12th was on education system, cyber critical infrastructure. 13th is very important, that was on seizing opportunities in open innovation and value creation networks in the digital world for self-reliant economy. 14th was on ensuring food safety and compliance through technology. Today is the 15th edition of the important webinar series. Mr. Ajay Jalan, who has contributed towards India's first semiconductor policy, CITSA, in 2006, and continued to engage the development of the day in India till now on the topic Digital India, urgent need for semiconductor manufacturing in India. Technology is the sum of techniques, skills, methods, and processes used in the production of goods or services, or in the accomplishment of objectives such as scientific investigation. Topic in the webinar series is a growing list. technology for ethics, open system, open infrastructure, open source software for open infrastructure, open hardware for open infrastructure, open data platform, open innovation, value creation networks, human resources development, startups in open technology, open society, industry 4.0, example, pharma 4.0, textile 4.0, agriculture 4.0, etc., etc. Edge computing, edge artificial intelligence, data governance, deriving big value from big data analytics. Digital India, transforming governance and society. India's email service, citizen@india.com, open digital ecosystems, cyber critical infrastructure, dark data, dark cloud, dark web, dark net, etc. Technology enabled food value chain. And today we will have the title on urgent need for semiconductor manufacturing to make digital India a way of life in India. India's electronics market is growing at the rate of 21.6% CAGR to reach $710 billion by 2025 from $180 billion in 2018 and will be requiring around $52 billion of semiconductor components to fuel this growth. You see the title and the keywords which are used in the title, Digital India. According to our Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi, Digital India has become a way of life in India. It means that digitalization of every aspect of device and process and methods in India. It means, means the large scale application of semiconductor components. Digitalized India, then urgent need, and he is very nicely putting today's speaker, Mr. Ajay Jalan, there is an urgent need for manufacturing semiconductor chips in India. On 15th May 2020, our Honorable Prime Minister of India announced Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, proposing Modi's 5 I's to make India self-reliant. It is a vision of our Prime Minister of India, making India a self-reliant nation, which is rested on 5 I's: intent, inclusion, investment, infrastructure, and based on 5 pillars: economy, quantum jump, infrastructure, one that represents India, system, 21st century technology driven, vibrant demography, source of energy for self-reliant India, and the demand, whereby the strength of our demand and supply chains should be utilized to full capacity. It means totally digitalized from production level to the consumer level, and announced through a special and comprehensive economic package of rupees 20 lakh crore that accounts for 10% of India's GDP to bring the economy back on track. And we are witnessing the V-shaped economic recovery now. He also proposed vocal for local to make it global, a demand-based economy system which is self-producing and self-consuming. The reforms announced have been systematic, planned, integrated, interconnected, and futuristic for creating strong enterprises, generating employment, and robust supply chains. This is our intent. Digitalized world, the rise of platform economy, applications of big data, new algorithms, and cloud computing is changing the nature of work and the structure of economy. Platform economy is a term that refers to the current transition that most valuable companies in the world are making from mainly offering products to mainly offering platforms. Is an economic and social activity facilitated by digital platforms. The rise of platform economy is one recent development business leaders should be looking hard at in the post-COVID recovery period. Matching the skills of workers to the needs of users, it has the potential to streamline business processes for employers, empower employees, and hugely boost consumer experience if it is implemented wisely. A digital platform economy is emerging, and digital ecosystems are essential for digital transformation in the digital world. On 5th December 2020, Dr. Jebamalai Vinanchi Arachi, former principal advisor to the Director General, United Nations Industrial Development Organizations, UNIDO, Vienna, addressed this webinar series on the topic Seizing Opportunities in Open Innovation and Value Creation Network in the Digital World for Self-Reliant Economy. And from 5th December 2020 to 19th December 2020, today's topic, Digital India, urgent need for semiconductor manufacturing in India. If you look at the recent research by Frost and Sullivan on technologies enabling food safety, which expects the following technologies to enable food safety in the next 5 years. I'm quoting one example where it needs large-scale semiconductor devices, based on chips, artificial intelligence, blockchain, gene editing, point-of-care devices, intelligent packaging, advanced encapsulation, biosensors, printed electronics, synthetic biology, thermosonication. So we have been discussing in various forums in this webinar series, Atmanirbhar Abhiyan in agriculture, for example, should include a digital infrastructure. The country should create a digital infrastructure to achieve Atmanirbhar Abhiyan in agriculture as a public good, which should include predictive analytics, automated labeling, wearable technology, blockchain-based traceability in value chain, artificial intelligence-based analytics, and IoT-based sensors and chemical analysis done on their premises with the spectral analysis. With this preface, let me come down to today's topic, semiconductors. The world runs on electronics, and semiconductors are its engine. Semiconductors are the core technology, similar to space and nuclear technology for economic development and defense of the country. Semiconductor chips are the most difficult things to be designed and produced on Earth. It is a material which conducts electricity more than an insulator, but less than a pure conductor. A semiconductor chip is an electric circuit with many components such as transistors and wiring formed on semiconductor wafer. An electronic device comprising numerous these components is called integrated circuit. In electronics, a wafer is a thin slice of semiconductor. Semiconductors fall into four main product categories: memory, microprocessors, commodity integrated circuits, complex system on chip. Semiconductor chip has gone further than any other technology in connecting the world. From cities that never sleep to remote rural villages, one technology is changing how we live and work. From the smartphones in our pockets to the vast data centers powering the internet, from electric scooters to hypersonic aircraft, pacemakers to weather predicting supercomputers, inside every one of them, unseen, unsunk, are tiny pieces of technology that make it all possible, that is semiconductor chips. These are all the basic building blocks of modern computations. Semiconductor devices called transistors are the tiny electronic switches that run computations inside our computers. Scientists in the US built the first silicon transistor in 1947. Before that, the mechanics of computing had been performed by vacuum tubes, which were slow and bulky. Silicon changed everything. The pace of innovation was unprecedented. First stated about 50 years ago by Gordon Moore, the co-founder of microchip giant Intel. Moore's law predicted that the number of transistors that you could fit on a chip would double every 2 years and later 18 months. Until very recently, Moore's law was proved right. Only now, when attempts to shrink transistors any smaller are pumping up against the limits of physics, has the pace of miniaturization slowed. Every transistor could be seen with the naked eye. Now, a tiny chip holds many billions of them due to nanotechnology. More than anything else, it is this exponential improvement in manufacturing that has driven the digital revolution. Chips for artificial intelligence acceleration have tremendous implications for applying artificial intelligence and machine learning techniques to domains under significant constraints such as size, power, and more, both in embedded applications as well as data centers. For the past few decades, semiconductors have been playing a key role in the advancement of emerging technologies like AI, Internet of Things, autonomous vehicle, 5G, robotics, and whatnot. Currently, India has been facing a lack of semiconductor manufacturing ecosystem as well as efficient electronic components, which can help the advancements to move at a fast pace compared to other developed countries. Recently, the government of India released an expression of interest, inviting companies and consortia who are desirous of setting up or expanding existing semiconductor wafer as well as device fabrication facilities in India or acquisition of semiconductor fabrication facilities outside India. India is endeavoring to increase its share in the global manufacturing of mobile phones, IoT, automotive electronics, industrial electronics, medical electronics, and other such devices in the coming years, as it aspires to have US dollar 400 billion of electronic manufacturing by the year 2025. India is getting ready for mass production of semiconductor chips. A journey started in 2006 and is taking a giant leap in 2020. While a large-scale semiconductor manufacturers face challenges to take off, several startups building chips for embedded systems like IoT and telephony on much a smaller scale are also disrupting the scene. There are many prominent startups here in India, namely Signal Chips, Sankhya Labs, and another one is a microprocessor called Shakti. Clearly, there is no dearth of talent when it comes to India becoming a dominant player in semiconductor chip manufacturing. Yet, the country has struggled to find a way to establish fab units needed for large-scale manufacturing. Now, with the rising demands for electronics, India is a large net importer of semiconductor chips. While India has done well in terms of chip design and electronics manufacturing, there have been challenges in setting up of semiconductor wafer fabrication units for a long time. It is clear that economies with a large production of these chips have benefited the most in terms of enhancing their GDPs. United States, Japan, Korea, China, Singapore, etc. are large producers of semiconductor chips and also have a strong foothold on the global economy. Let us now turn to the address on Digital India, urgent need for manufacturing semiconductor in India by Mr. Ajay Jalan, our guest speaker today. This topic will motivate and galvanize the participants watching over the telecast through facebook.com/Sobit University India or youtube.com Sobit University India for motivating STEM students, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics students to skill education and higher study on VLSI, very large scale integration at BTech, MTech, and PhD level. Let me introduce our guest speaker, Mr. Ajay Jalan, to the participants of the webinar. Mr. Ajay Jalan, the founder and managing partner, Next Orbit Ventures, Mumbai. Mr. Ajay Jalan, aged 50 plus years, the son of Shri Ratanlal Jalan, belongs to Jaipur, Rajasthan, and currently resides at Mumbai. Mr. Ajay Jalan holds the meritorious educational qualifications from Bachelor's of Commerce from Rajasthan University, 6th rank in university in 1989, Fellow Chartered Accountancy from Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, 17th rank all over India in 92, Associate Company Secretary from Institute of Companies Secretaries of India, second rank all over India in 1992, MBA from Latrobe University, Melbourne, Australia, and executive training courses from Harvard University, IIM Bangalore, Institute of Directors and VC Circle, etc., etc. MBA, FCA, FCS, gold medalist, Harvard, ISP and IIM trained, and IOD UK certified director. Mr. Ajay Jalan has around 25 plus years of experience in finance, operations, investment management, and entrepreneurship. From the year 1993 to 2011, he has worked in the senior executive positions in various Fortune 500 and SMEs, Indian and American companies, including Industrial Financial Corporation of India, Tata Teleservices, Tally Solutions, Affiliated Computer Services, I2 Technologies, Sem India, and Silicon Valley. He founded Next Orbit Ventures Fund, an SEBI registered venture capital fund in 2012. Consultant CFO role in an US $3 billion semiconductor project between 2005 to 2011. And his achievements are actually managing 5 funds with US dollar $10 billion target investment, contributed towards India's first semiconductor policy CITSA in 2006, instrumental in setting up a US dollar $2 billion government sponsored fund for the semiconductor industry, generated an IRR of 59% and an average in the last 14 deals exited. He is also facilitated by Indian Semiconductor Association for India's first semiconductor policy in 2007 in the presence of ISA members, Intel, AMD, Cadence, Broadcom, etc. by the then ISA president in Delhi. We welcome Mr. Ajay Jalan for your innovative address to be delivered in the international webinar series on open source digital technology towards self-reliant India, Atmanirbhar Bharat. Over to Mr. Ajay Jalan for your address.
Thank you, Professor Moni, and thank you, Sobit University, for giving me this opportunity to talk on today's topic of Digital India, urgent need for semiconductor manufacturing in India. Let me start with the presentation. And this topic is very near and dear to me, despite not being a technical person. Semiconductors has fascinated me from 2006 onwards, when I got the first opportunity to work for a semiconductor startup. And since then, I have been personally and through my organization, Next Orbit Ventures, have been striving to get India started with the semiconductor manufacturing ASAP. I hope the presentation is visible to everybody.
Yes.
So the vision of Next Orbit Ventures is to get India into the semiconductor manufacturing in the country, which will support the Make in India, Digital India, Electronics India, Skill India, Buy in India, and the Atmanirbhar Bharat program of the Government of India and of current Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi. So as we as a consumers of the electronics, we see that everything is now digital, everything is on electronics, be it consumer electronics, so the day-to-day equipments that we are using in our homes and in offices, including your television, fridges, the cars, like cars are also getting automated. Now, that the electronics cars are coming, laptops, computers, smartphones, tabs, even the future technology of artificial intelligence, IoTs, robotics, virtual realities. The industries are getting smart industry and getting automated through robotics. Even the aviations and the aerospace, the spacecrafts, rockets, even the defense and medical sciences, etc., are all based on semiconductors, which are the brains and hearts of the electronics, and it is getting pervasive in every applications of our modern life. So basically, three types of chips, semiconductor chips, are there, which enables these electronics to be the smart electronics. One is digital, another is analog, and third one is memory. In a layman terms, like a human body, we have eyes, ears, nose to sense the surroundings and the data that we then process through our brain for the decision making or for any application, and then it gets stored in the memory. So similarly, for electronics also, there are three types of chips. Analog provides the inputs, digital processes the informations, and memory stores the input and output. So this is one example of the mobile phone that we all are being using from a child as young child as 5 years old to so from a basic feature phone to a smartphone, 20 to 60% of the semiconductors are the value of the equipment. So you can see that like without semiconductors, the electronics will not function, will not perform what we are seeing it and what we are expecting it going forward. Now, one of the reason why the semiconductor manufacturing is required, because the government of India since 2014 has enabled or has provided the incentives for assembly of the electronics. But the assembly of the electronics, be it mobile phones or televisions or computers, that will capture only 10 to 15% of the value of the total value. The remaining value addition will be captured in the country only when the semiconductor manufacturing starts. And in that regard, Next Orbit Ventures have done an extensive market study of the government of the India market through a global research company called Frost and Sullivan. And as per the findings of that report, it says that the global electronic system design manufacturing industry is growing at 5%, whereas Indian ESDM industry is growing at the rate of almost 4 times, from $180 billion in 2018 to $710 billion by 2025. So this is going to be a massive industry. And if you see the component of the imports in 2018, the $162 billion of electronics, whether finished goods or the components were being imported, only $18 billion of value was captured in India through assembly. And if the semiconductor manufacturing or manufacturing of the components doesn't take place in India sooner, By 2025, we'll be importing $568 billion of electronics every year, which will deeply impact our foreign exchange rate as well as the viability of the country as a whole. We are also witnessing that from 2018, the assembly was of a low value addition, and it is expected that if semiconductor manufacturing starts happening in the country, by 2025, the high value addition sectors will be more, and that will bring a lot of value to the country in terms of forex generation, employment generations, import substitutions. So there is a big opportunity for the country. As far as the usage is considered, we'll be moving from.
Mr. Ajay Jalan, you also go slowly. Okay.
Sure.
You explain every aspect, because the power, this the font size and everything is very small. So cover, very elaborate manner for each slides. Okay,
Sure.
thank you.
Sure, Professor Moni. Thank you for your suggestion. So up till now, CCTV, tablets, storage devices, FPD TVs, HVAC, medical devices, LED lighting, servers, industrial machineries, notebooks, refrigerators, media gateways. Those were the major items that was creating the demand. But by 2025, the major demand creation will be from smartphones, will be from defense, and from engine control units that goes into the automotive. These are the three major demand drivers that will create the demand for the electronics as well as the demand for the semiconductor chips going forward. Now, based on the electronic demands, we have tried to assess what will be the semiconductor demand if anybody has to set up a semiconductor manufacturing in the country. So from 5.1 million units that was required in 2018, it will grow to 17.3 million wafers of 300 mm size by 2025. And this demand of 17.3 million wafers per annum is good enough for at least 3 to 5 semiconductor fabs to make this wafers. And in terms of value, it will be from $18 billion to $52 billion by 2025. So the market is big, and what we normally hears from the industry players that does the India has the market for semiconductor manufacturing? This data very clearly shows that there is enough demand for at least 4 to 5 semiconductor fabs encompassing digital, analog, and memory fabs, and $52 billion of market is good enough and very lucrative enough for semiconductor manufacturing to start in the country soon. Now, this is a very insightful data because most of the time, the critics who are not in favor of of India getting a semiconductor manufacturing, for a simple reason that a fab would cost anywhere, from analog fab of $65 million to currently will cost around $3 billion. And a 7 nanometer digital fab would cost around $15 billion. The question was being asked every time that a country like India, can it afford the investments of 10 to $15 billion or not? Now, this is the data that I want to share with all those critics to show that if we are not, without getting semiconductor fab, we are every year losing more than what a fab requires. So, for example, we have started as Dr. Professor Moni has shared, that myself and Next Orbit Ventures is striving from 2006 onwards, when the first semiconductor policy, we enabled it. The bar in gray shows that what was imported in 2006, $40 billion, $62 billion, $100 billion. That was the total market. And the exchange rate was 42 rupees in 2006. It has increased to 51 rupees in 2009. 2012, it increased to 52 rupees. In 2015, it increased to 62 rupees. In 2018, and currently we are seeing a dollar to a rupee around 74. And we are expecting that if the import substitution through semiconductor manufacturing doesn't happen sooner, the exchange rate will go to 119 rupees. And the blue bar depicts that how much we are losing every year just because of a currency depreciation from 42 rupees to 51 rupees, and then from 40 to 52 or 62 or 74 or 91 or 119. So the gray figure shows that the cumulative amount that we'll be losing by 2025 if we don't do the semiconductor manufacturing and import substitution efforts very seriously, by 2025, we'll be losing out $441 billion cumulatively. And what is required to start a semiconductor manufacturing is roughly around $10 to $15 billion. The question is, should we keep losing on an average $20 to $25 billion every year and not do anything? Or should we invest $10 to $20 billion together with government support, get the semiconductor manufacturing in the country, and try and protect what we'll be losing $441 billion by 2025 to stop that? Even if we can manage to stop 50% of that, the investment of 20 billion will be justified. So this is the key slide why India needs semiconductor manufacturing urgently, because without semiconductor manufacturing we are losing, and if we get the semiconductor manufacturing, at least we can control the loss or control the foreign exchange loss that we Indians are together losing every year in the range of 20 to 25 billion dollars. And this is exactly what China is also doing, the same thing, that China is investing heavily, because the same problem is China also. They are also importing semiconductors in a big way, which is depreciating the currency. And to minimize the losses, the foreign exchange loss, government of China, as per one estimate, has earmarked more than $100 billion to get semiconductor manufacturing into their country. Now, getting semiconductor manufacturing is not an easy task. Currently, what is the geographical concentration of the total electronics value chain? So if you see, the most of the product and semiconductor IPs of the semiconductor is concentrated mostly with the US companies. And if you have seen the news yesterday also, the US is clamping down on China on a big way. And they have yesterday blacklisted SMIC, the Semiconductor Manufacturing Industry Corporation, one of the largest semiconductor fab of China, that they will not be getting any IP of an American companies. That means that once that happens, and that has started with JTE, that started with Huawei, and now with SMIC. So slowly, with one ban by US company, the entire semiconductors and electronic market of, or the biggest companies of China are coming to the ground. So currently, more than 53% of the semiconductor IP is concentrated with the US companies like Intel, AMD, Broadcom, Qualcomm, and Micron. The semiconductor manufacturing, which is the third-party manufacturing, mostly is concentrated in Taiwan. between the two companies called TSMC and UMC. So between the TSMC and UMC, more than 70% of the semiconductor manufacturing takes place in Taiwan, in a Hsinchu Park of Taiwan, which is 3,500 acres of park. And these two companies control the 71% of the manufacturing of the semiconductors. The electronic manufacturing services, which is basically the assembly of mobile phones, the tablets, the laptops, the TVs, and the refrigerators, that happens mostly with China. So more than 70% of the electronics assembly is with China. And when India started the electronic manufacturing in 2006, and the companies like Dell and HP, they set up the assembly lines in Chennai, Sri Perumbudur. They represented to the India's finance minister in Davos that only semiconductor manufacturing will help us to scale the total value chain in India, and only the assembly of the components and making the final products will capture not more than 5 to 10% of the total value. So how countries like Taiwan and or the big four foundries have came into the picture into the respective countries like Taiwan, US, or Taiwan or China. So we have done the study of all these big four companies. TSMC is number one in the world as far as the semiconductor manufacturing is concerned. Global Foundry is number two in the world. UMC is number three, and SMIC is number four, which is based in China. So TSMC has been upfunded by Taiwanese government. A consortium of professionals have got together, represented to Taiwan government, Mr. Maurice Cheng, and then Taiwanese government supported with the upfront payment to the TSMC. And they, in addition to the government support, then they worked on the ecosystem strategy. Here the ecosystem strategy means that not only fab, in a Hsinchu Science Park of Taiwan, more than 400 companies are there, which include design companies like MediaTek, EMS companies, and other components manufacturer companies. Basically, the hub and spoke model of electronics was enabled. And to protect the industry, semiconductor industry, from the bigger player, the government brought in the differential tariffs also, so that the established players can be protected, or can the new fab can be protected from the dumping of the old players or the existing players. And the world-class infrastructure in the form of stable power, in the form of pure water, all those things were being provided to TSMC, and that's how the TSMC became the market leader, which controls more than 50% market share as on today. Similarly, Global Foundry, which is number two in the world, it came into the picture somewhere in 2000 when AMD divested its IDM model and decided to play only a fabless company, and the entire manufacturing was transferred to a company called Global Foundries, which was invested by Mubadala, which is a sovereign wealth fund of UAE government. And since the company was based in the US, mostly US and Europe, unlike Taiwan, wherein and the upfront payment or upfront support was there from the government of UAE, but no ecosystem strategy, no differential tariff was being provided to Global Foundry, although the world-class infrastructure was there because it was based in the US or in the Europe, mostly in Germany. The company is struggling because there is no ecosystem strategy, no differential tariff. Its market share is 10%. It's shrinking. It's struggling. And number three is the UMC, which is again upfront funded by Taiwanese government, have ecosystem strategy, have a differential tariff, have world-class infrastructure, and has more than 10% market share, and it's growing better than Global Foundry, not better than TSMC, but still better than Global Foundry. for a simple reason that it has an ecosystem strategy, it has a differential tariff in addition to the government support. Similarly, SMIC, which is number 4 in the world, it was upfront funded by Chinese government. It has ecosystem strategy. It has a differential tariff by the Chinese government, and it has been provided a world-class infrastructure. So it has growing market share of 7%. So in a nutshell, what we also feel that if India has to get a semiconductor manufacturing, it has to copy paste what has worked for the TSMC and the UMC, that is upfront support from government of India, the ecosystem strategy, the differential tariff or the preferred market access on chips for protecting the Indian industry, and the world-class infrastructure in terms of power, water, and other infrastructure in terms of air connectivity, uh, R&D facilities, the academia facility, the training facilities, and everything. So what a strong electronic manufacturing ecosystem in India will help. First of all, it will counter threat to the national security of the country. As we said, that electronics is at the heart of the vital national infrastructure of defense, telecom, finance, and commerce. The heavy dependence on electronics on foreign nations like China and Taiwan is there currently. And with the current hostility or the relations with the China, the threat has been multiplied many times, and with the COVID also, and so semiconductor manufacturing and the assembly of electronics is paramount from that perspective also. And exposure to remote monitoring, digital infiltrations, and cyber attack. Unless and until the chips starts getting manufactured in India, the electronic devices that being used in India, either in defense or telecom or finance or commerce, will be susceptible to digital infiltrations, remote monitoring, and cyber attacks, as the news are already there in the offing that Chinese Huawei company has been spying on all the telecom infrastructure that has got installed in India by Geo or Airtel and other things. Further, once the semiconductor manufacturing happens, it will curb massive imports, which is very evident, and it will also help in achieving the net zero imports of the scheme of the government of India. It will boost economic growth in terms of employment generations of more than 28 million skilled jobs as per government of India estimates. It will support the world-class training. It will control the balance of payment and bolster currency from reaching 100 rupees per dollar. And it will boost GDP of the country. Today itself, Honorable Minister Ravi Shankar Prasad has made a statement that electronic manufacturing itself can add $1 trillion to the GDP of the country. So from 3 trillion to 5 trillion, the additional 1 trillion can come from electronic manufacturing. Now, what will happen if the semiconductor fab is not there? How the delay is going to cost to the country? So as we have said, there will be significant loss to the exchequer because of increased dependency on foreign suppliers and trade routes. And they will be susceptible to price fixing and sanctions. There will be high cost of living because, as I said, the dollars will move from 74 rupees to 119 rupees. So everything will become costly, including your mobile phone, to your ACs, to your car. And it will put increased pressure on Indian rupees for relying on the imports. Since India is not an export economy, every import is putting pressure on the rupee of the country and will make everything costly. Security threat in terms of untrusted communications and malicious activities, money laundering, financial impropriety and crimes, loss on foreign exchange that we have discussed, and most importantly, the competitive advantage that US, Taiwan, China is having. If we don't start with the semiconductor manufacturing, we will lose the competitive advantage, and the country would be again dependent on the foreign nations for their entire technology requirement. So how to get the semiconductor manufacturing? Our leaders have also echoed the thought that so Amitabh Kant, the CEO of Niti Aayog, has made a statement that India has lost out in the mobile manufacturing, has lost out on solar manufacturing and the semiconductor manufacturing, and we cannot afford to miss on electronic vehicles, revolutions, and batteries and other components. So government itself has accepted that India has lost in mobile, solar, and semiconductor manufacturing, and needs urgent and concrete steps to start uh, picking on the missed opportunity. Uday Kotak, the noted bankers from the Kotak Bank, has also tweeted that India's current account challenge is now not only oil but also electronics. Gold has dropped to number 3, but electronic imports have nearly doubled in 5 years. Anand Mahindra, again the chairman of our Mahindra and Mahindra Group, he has tweeted in 2018 saying that this trend of electronic imports is going to escalate, and the only way to get the local manufacturing in the country is to form a consortium of Indian companies that jointly have the capital, technology, and staying power to compete. So the only way the industrialists, the bankers, the government, and recently as August 2020, July 2020, Honorable Minister Piyush Goyal ji of Commerce Minister has called industry to set up a semiconductor manufacturing plant in India soon, because this is such a difficult, this is such a complex project that it cannot be done by one industrial house. It has, the entire industry has to come together and put the semiconductor manufacturing, get together to put a semiconductor manufacturing. And this is exactly what Next Orbit Ventures is trying to do. It's a fund, and we are pulling all the corporate houses, we are pulling all the government agencies and the investors and the technology partners to get the semiconductor manufacturing in the country. So this is our plan, that to get the semiconductor manufacturing, digital and photonics, which is the processing capability of the electronics, analog and memory fabs. These are the core fabs which will be required. Estimated investments is of $10 billion. And then we have to invest into electronic products, semiconductor and electronic designs, components, PCBs, supporting ecosystem. So that way the robust electronic ecosystem will be enabled. And the consortium members will consist of central government, state government, public sector units, ecosystem companies, India corporate houses, global technology partners, domestic investors, global investors, academia, research, and other associations. So some of the suggestions or the comments that has come from the industry experts, the global investors, they said that fabs are to be independent of corporate houses for IP protection and economy of scale. One reason why Taiwan has been so successful and why even the company like Apple gets the chip manufactured from Taiwan is because Taiwan has ensured that the IP of the company, whether it's an established company or a new promoter, will be kept secret, will not be shared or with anybody, and their IP will not be infringed upon. Same thing is required for foundry to happen in India also. It has to be independent of the corporate houses so that it stays neutral, and anybody will have a confidence that their IP will not be compromised. This strategy has been hailed by one of the large investors of ours, Mubadala, that this is the only viable strategy to develop electronic manufacturing in India by global investors like Mubadala and Texas Instrument. Further, Texas Instrument has made a statement that standalone fabs are not viable without ecosystem. It needs to be developed together. There has been, in India, there has been attempts in 2006, 2014, that that standalone fabs were being invited to put up a fab. They have failed to do the financial closure for a simple reason that ecosystem strategy was not there, and because of that, the investors have declined to invest in this. And therefore, this has to be developed on the lines of Sinchu Park, and we have been earmarked 150 acres of land in Dhulera, Gujarat, recently by government of Gujarat to develop this on the lines of Sinchu Park of Taiwan. So, in terms of not only in terms of the country needs the fab, it is also a very attractive sector for the investors as such. So India ESDM has been top performing sector globally and is poised to grow further. So we have benchmarked the returns that the ecosystem company consisting of IDMs and foundries, fabless companies, and other electronic companies, how much returns they have generated for the investors. So on an average, 209% of the return has been generated by the fab, whether it's foundry or IDM integrated device manufacturer like Intel or AMD. The design companies have generated more than 242% return to their investors, and these are the returns over the period of 5 years. So and the other electronic companies have generated the returns of around 77%. So these are all very good returns that against the benchmark of 8 to 10% every year that global investors look for. And so there is a viable case for semiconductor manufacturing to happen sooner than later in the country. As we speak, Government of India on 15th of December has floated an expression of interest to float up a semiconductor fabrication in the country. And they have invited this time 3 types of companies, or 3 categories of semiconductor companies. One is category A, which will be consisting of digital, analog, mixed signal, memory kind of a semiconductor manufacturing. Another is category B is of a compound semiconductor manufacturing consisting of other than silicon-based semiconductor companies like for high power and optoelectronic devices. And for category C also, this time for the first time they have also called for if any Indian companies or consortia is interested in acquiring the semiconductor fab outside India and subsequently relocate those fabs to the country. I think this time again, this is one more attempt from Government of India to get the semiconductor manufacturing, and we hope that the country will get the semiconductor manufacturing sooner, and all the mistakes that has been made in 2006 and 2014 will not be repeated, and the country will see the semiconductor manufacturing ASAP. Thank you. Over to Professor Moni, sir.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Ajay Jalan, that your very important address today to the audience, to the participants of this international webinar series. You have covered every aspect of the urgent need for semiconductor manufacturing in India to make a digital India a way of life. You talked about why and how and what and where. And when you immediately said it is now, as soon as possible. And you have given an action plan, and you also given that you are also ready to bring in investment. And you also very nicely said it. It is something like a SWOT analysis you have brought it out. That what the Government of India should look into it, You talked about 4 major companies, and both are number 1 and number 2 are in Taiwan, that fab manufacturing. And the second one is in, in US, and fourth one is in China. And the situation is that the US now blocked IP with respect to semiconductor, manufacturing technology. IP on technology has been now blocked for China. China is manufacturing all electronics appliances. And if the chip they are not in a position to manufacture, then their electronic appliances are useless. And that's why, there were some discussions when the recent, aggression of, China towards our Indian border, which started in the month of June, that they said that they are looking for water for manufacturing, semiconductor, fab manufacturing, and water is a problem in China. They want to have water for 24 hours, 365 days. And this is, you very nicely in your 45 minutes talk, very effectively brought it out for the benefits of the participants. I would like to summarize as follows. Starting from the, your, final slide, you said that Government of India has invited now expression of interest on 15th December 2020 with 3 categories of manufacturing activity. And, the journey started from 2006, and then 2014, 15, started with a standalone, standalone, fab manufacturing without having any ecosystem strategy. And you also said it very clearly that how ecosystem strategy is more important. You brought out very clearly that what the Honorable Union Minister, Mr. Piyush Goyal, said it, and he has asked for industry to set up semiconductor fabrication plant in India, and also 3 entrepreneurs, what they said it, with respect to semiconductor fab manufacturing, what Mr. Amitabh Khan, CEO of Niti Aayog, what he said was true. What Mr. Uday Kotak of Kotak Mahindra Bank, Kotak Bank, what he said was also true. And what Mr. Anand Mahindra said was also true. 3 industrialists and 1 union cabinet minister has also said it that there is an urgent need for semiconductor manufacturing in India. And you also said it, you built the cat, that if there is a delay in establishing semiconductor fab manufacturing in India, what will be the cost? There will be a significant loss to exchequer. There will be a cost of, higher cost of living. There will be a security threat, loss of foreign exchange, and loss of competitive advantage, like what Taiwan and China has already taken it up. And you also, quoted the recent, announcement or the talk by the Honorable Union Minister of Electronics and Industry, Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad. Through electronic manufacturing, the Indian GDP will be to the tune of about 1 trillion. So there is, we talk about 5 trillion economy, and electronic manufacturing, electronics, semiconductor device manufacturing will bring in 1 trillion economy. Recently in our webinar series on, on the topic of secrets of successful startups. The speaker talked about it. Why only we talk about we aim at 5 trillion economy? Every state in India should think about 1 trillion economy. So if 1 trillion economy can come from electronic, ESDM, then every state should think about 1 trillion economy. It means that India should aim for 28 to 30 trillion economy minimum. That's what he talked about it. That was on 15th December 2020 on our national webinar series on skill enablement. So that is the capability and the space we have in India. Now let me come back from what you talked about. It is that you said that world runs on electronics, semiconductor or its engine, and semiconductor is the brain and the heart of electronics. And you also, compared with a human being, analog devices bring information, it digitally, processed and stored in memory. Very, very nicely, in a simple terminology, you have said it that the importance of semiconductor. And these two sentences alone will motivate many of the students from the discipline of STEM can look into the learning and getting higher education in semiconductor devices and semiconductor technology. Brains and heart of electronics, semiconductor devices, and the world runs on electronic, and semiconductor is its engine. And also electronic value chain uses about 20 to 60% of semiconductor devices. And if you do only for the value assembling, the value addition will be the tune of 5 to 10%. Globally, you brought out statistics that ESDM grows at the rate of 5%, but whereas Indian ESDM grows by 4 times by 2025. It means that by 2025, if this is allowed to continue, it will be that India has to spend about $568 billion. And you said it, by investing about $10 billion on semiconductor fab manufacturing, then this can be arrested. And then you also said it that this will lead to even arrest of the rise of cost, balance of payment. And you also very, I think the officials, the economists who, if they are watching this one, you also said it by 2025, our dollar rate will be the order of about 119, if I'm not wrong. And why can't we stop it now? Mantra is as soon as possible, ASAP. And and you also very nicely said it that cumulative loss by 2025 will be in the order of about $441 billion. And it means that per year economic loss to electronic import, this is in the order of about $5 to $20 billion. And you have very rightly silenced and answered the so-called critics who have even I was told when I was talking to one honorable minister along with you, he said it that whenever they raised as in questions in parliament, they said that in India it is economically not viable. That's what it was even told in parliament, I was told. And this has this has to be looked into it. And that the efforts of these next Orbit Venture Fund, as you have started, you are instrumental, and you started your journey from 2006 by piloting the first semiconductor policy, and now about 2006 to 2020, it is a big journey, and it's a giant leap. And you're also coming with the investors to undertake the semiconductor fab manufacturing in India, and finally you succeeded by working with the government of Gujarat. And hats off to you, by your consistent effort in bringing in this industry to the country. You also said it that the way in which India grows with respect to electronic, components are concerned, it is 4 times. It will reach by 4 times by 2025. It is not only one semiconductor fab manufacturing, unit is needed. It should be, to the order of about 4 to 5. And you also very said it that this can give about, large scale skilled employment generations. In one of the slides which I have seen it, that the number of MTech level people, MTech level students, PhD level students, and BTech level students with a very large scale integration, technology studies, that this can generate large scale employment opportunities, in India, if this semiconductor fab manufacturing is initiated. And I wish that the expression of interest the government of India has now come out on 15th December 2020, it's end up with positive note. It gets into actionable plan, gets into semiconductor fab manufacturing to the order of about 4 to 5, and with the strong ecosystem. And you also given, you don't have to go for a world tour. You go to only 4 places, out of which you only said it. What is available in Taiwan, the model which is available in Taiwan, it is good for India. You said it. This is TSMC and UMC in located in Taiwan. This is number one manufacturing unit, and number 3rd in the world, are suitable and should be, replicated in India. It's a total ecosystem, strategy to be adopted. And you also talked about that. You also very nicely answered the critics. There will be a strong return on investment for various categories of stakeholders in the order of 209%, 242%, and 77% return on investment. Fab, non-fab, and other uses. This is a viable, economically viable, industry which India should go in for. And apart from this, you also covered very nicely that this ecosystem, strong electronic, there's a manufacturing ecosystem in India, will counter threat to national security. Because, and the second one is, it will curb massive imports, and it will boost economic growth, and it will generate 28 million skilled jobs. These devices are the heart of telecom, defense, finance, and commerce. And these are all the important, take-ups today, takeaway points from your talk today. And you have conveyed to the country the importance of the need for semiconductor manufacturing in India. And I hope that all the 4,500 engineering colleges who teach electronics and National Institute of Technology, Indian Institute of Technology, Indian Institute of Science and Education Research, and central universities, private universities, deemed to be universities, and other university colleges who teach electronics as a subject, to generate interest among the students who have interest to study physics, mathematics, chemistry in a very important manner, effectively there's a STEM category to take interest in understanding semiconductor technology. And that is we have to bring new breed of students, and also to facilitate startups, large number of startups to mushroom around these educational institutions, engineering institutions, to facilitate higher education in the semiconductor technology. And India is has to take this technology innovation, manufacturing strategy, and bring in ESDM in this country in a very successful roadmap. And with this, I thank Mr. Ajay Jalan, the founder, the managing partner of Next Orbit Venture Fund, for participating in the international webinar series on open source digital technology towards self-reliant India Atmanirbhar Bharat, organized by Sobit Institute of Engineering and Technology, deemed to be University Meerut, and its centers of excellence. We thank you, and we would like to have your strong association with the university for facilitating, motivating the students to take up this technology studies very effectively. Thanks for your participation, and greeting from Sobit University. For such inquiries, please contact Professor Moni Madaswamy, Professor Emeritus and Chairman, Center for Informatics Development Solutions and Application, and Center for Industry 4.0 Technology Studies and Application, and former Director General, National Informatics Center, Government of India, New Delhi. And the email address is moni@sobituniversity.ac.in. Thank you very much, and we close the webinar series now.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Professor
Mr.
Moni. Thank you, Sobit University, for giving me this opportunity to talk. Thank you.